Welcome to another Black Knight adventure by BK Academy of Chess. It all started with e4, e5, e4, the King's Gambit, one of my favorite openings. Though I have to admit, my success rate with this opening is not that great, but I still love playing it, because when I win big. The game continued with e takes f4, knight f3, d6, as recommended by Bobby Fischer. Here, the recommended move is d4, but I always play bishop c4, and black played h6. Now this defense may look slow as none of black's pieces are yet developed. However, it's a tough defense to crack, and it's one I don't like seeing. So I decided to break away from book theory and played h4, and the game continued with knight f6, knight c3, bishop e7, d3, knight h5, knight d5, bishop g4, and after knight takes f4, I was feeling pretty good. I recaptured the pawn, my pieces are very mobile, and I have control of the board. At least that's what I thought, but what was I missing? After knight takes f4, bishop takes f4, how should black continue? Black played bishop takes h4. I can take back, or I lose the rook, or even worse, my queen. So I decided to block the check with g3, and the game continued with bishop f6, c3, knight d7, castle, knight e5. Okay, time for some tactics. How should white play? I missed bishop takes c5. Because after d takes c5, what does white have? Bishop takes f7. And if the king takes the bishop, white forks the king and bishop. Right? Because black's dark squared bishop would be pinned to the king. If black recaptures with bishop takes c5, what does white have? Bishop takes f7. And if the king takes the bishop, white forks the king and bishop. Right? Not because of a pin, but instead because of a double check, and the only way out of a double check is to move the king. Okay, back to the game. I played queen a4 and the game continued with bishop d7, queen b3, knight takes c4, queen takes c4, castle, e5, maybe not the best move, but let me explain my thought process. What do we have here? My king is wide open, I'm down a pawn, and black still has both bishops. However, my queen is doing much better than black's queen. So I decided to try to engage black into exchanging off one of its bishops, clearing the f-file for my rook, hoping to quickly activate my rooks to join forces with the queen. The game continued with d takes c5, bishop takes c5, bishop takes c5, and knight takes c5, just as planned. Now I'm feeling like I have better chances at catching up. After bishop e6, queen e4, queen g5, I'm starting to feel uncomfortable, with black's queen and bishop so close to my busted castle, so I played queen f4. Usually I try not to exchange my major pieces when I'm down, but I felt that I had to do something to relieve the pressure, and after queen takes f4, I felt much better. Not to mention, my endgame is my strength. Especially the rook endgame, as we shall see. So I was happy to take back with rook takes f4, so the game continued with rook a d8, d4, king h7, rook af1, f6. Now I'm thinking, I have to do something on the queen side, seeing I have a 4-3 pawn majority. So I played a4, rook fe8, knight d3, bishop c4, rook 1 f3, bishop takes d3, rook takes d3, rook e2, b4, rook d8, a5, rook 2 e3, rook f3, after rook takes f3, rook takes f3, king g6, king f2, king f7, rook f5. I was happy with this position, feeling like my rook was much better, being able to attack black's pawns from the 5th rank, whereas black's rook, though it was on the open file, really wasn't threatening anything, as my king was guarding all of its access squares to my pawns. After b6 I couldn't decide between rook d5, followed by rook d7, or just hanging out on the 5th rank with rook h5. After some thought, I played rook h5, placing the rook on the half-open file, where I could swing around to protect my pawns from the back, if necessary. The rook is also safe from attacks. If g6, then I take the h-pawn, and from this position, I still have access to all of black's pawns. After rook e6, I decided to exchange pawns. A takes b6, a takes b6, and then pinning down the queen side pawns with b5, made possible because of my rook on the 5th rank. After c6, I couldn't decide whether to take the pawn or to overprotect with c4. But then I found d5. I decided on this move because it forces the exchange, leaving me with 2 connected pawns. And after c takes d5, rook takes d5, rook e5, I checked the king with rook d7, king g6, sticking black's king to its g-pawn. Right? The king can't just leave the pawn hanging. Plus now I can get my rook behind black's b-pawn. After c4, rook c5, do I protect or attack? When in doubt, attack with the rook in the endgame. So I played rook b7, rook takes c4, rook takes b6, king g5. Black's king is happy now that it can move away from the g-pawn, but this gives me the chance to get my rook out from in front of my pawn, so I played rook c6. After rook b4, I was thinking rook c7, attacking the g-pawn, but after g6, I didn't want to play rook b7, trapping my rook in front of the pawn. So I played b6. I felt like the rook had more range by protecting the pawn from the side. Now after g6, what to do? What am I playing for? To draw, right? I thought about trying to queen my pawn by attacking the rook with my king, but I was unsure if I could force it off of the b-file, too many squares for the rook. But then I thought, if I tried and failed, I would lose for sure, so I decided to go for the draw with g4. So what's my thinking, you may ask, and I'll tell you. Now my focus is on winning the f-pawn or g-pawn. Because I know I can draw versus the g and h pawns or versus the f and h pawns. So if the king takes, I take the f-pawn. If the rook takes, I could possibly win, by checking the king and getting my rook behind my pawn. At least this is what I was thinking. After black played f5, I knew exactly what I was going to do. First exchange with g takes f5, g takes f5, and then get my rook to a8. You could say that I'm abandoning my pawn too early, and this may be so. However, I don't want to have it hanging around to become a hindrance to drawing. It's tough to get to stalemate if I still have a pawn that I can move. So play continue with rook c8, rook takes b6, rook a8. And this is the setup you need to draw in this position, with my king on f2, and my rook on a8. The idea is to keep my king on or around the f2 square, without getting trapped on the back rank, keep my rook in the corner ready to attack the king when needed. So let's see how this works. King g4, rook g8, king f4. Here, I was thinking I may have made a mistake, because if I move my rook back to its post on a8, black could play rook b2, forcing my king onto the back rank, and that can happen. So I played king g2, rook b2, king h3, and after h5 I played rook a8, getting my rook back to its post. After rook b4, king g2, rook d4, I played rook b8, avoiding king f2, followed by rook d2, forcing my king to the back rank. After h4, rook a8, king e3. I attack the king with rook e8, rook e4, rook a8, h3, and I took the pawn, of course, with king takes h3, phase 1 complete. But now comes the real test. When defending with a rook versus rook and pawn, it's important to have the defending king on the short side of the board, and that the defender's rook must have at least 3 squares in between the pawn and the rook. But the technique in defending is tough to master. You have to know when to attack the pawn from the back, when to attack the king with checks from the side, when to cover the promotion square with the rook, and when and how to approach the pawn with the king. After black played king f2, I found myself already struggling. Should I place the rook behind the pawn, attack the pawn from the side forcing it to advance, then place the rook behind the pawn, or should I check the king? Then I remembered, when the king is in front of the pawn, I should be checking the king from the side, so I played rook a2. By the way, Grandmaster Melixet Kachian and International Daniel Ranch has an excellent rook ending series covering this topic, and even though I periodically check in with those videos, because I do take pride in my rook endgame, however, it's still tough for me because every position has its subtle differences. Okay, black blocked the check with rook e2, and I saw it coming, but I was unsure if I should attack the pawn, cut it off with rook a4, or cover the promotion square with rook a1. Because the pawn was so far away, I quickly eliminated rook a1. Then after some thought, I played rook a5. The further away the pawn is from promoting, the easier it is to defend. But I must admit, I wanted the pawn to advance because I was looking for a position that I was more familiar with. After f4, I blundered with rook f5. I knew it immediately because with the king in front of the pawn, my rook should be on the side attacking the pawn, checking the king and covering the promotion square. But I knew it would still be tough for black to win. For example, does black know about the Lucena? And after analyzing this with Fritz, I found black only had one move to capitalize on my mistake. So if you were playing with the black pieces, how would you play? Pause the video if you need more time. The correct move is to check the king with rook e3, however black pushed the pawn to f3, which gave me enough time to get my rook back to the a file with rook a5. Because I blundered, I'm still not sure if this is enough, but I am much more confident because this is not easy for black as well. And black made my job easier by playing king f1. So how should white play to draw? One move could seal the deal. So what do you think? Attack from the side, from the back, with the rook or with the king? You see, it's not that easy. The correct move is king g3, made possible mainly because of black's poorly placed rook, because if the pawn pushes, the king can attack the rook with f3, and then harass the king with checks. However, black played rook e3, and then offered to draw. Because after rook a1, there's not much black can do. I thoroughly enjoyed this game, even better than some of the games that I have won. Because I was down, and could have resigned, but I decided to play on, and was successful at holding a very tough position for the draw. Thanks for tuning into BK Academy of Chess, where together we build, and over the board we even the score.